Sky News contributor, UK commentator. We've joined him on a Friday night a couple of times now, Adrian Hayes. Adrian, great to see you again. I watched a lot of Donald Trump today saying that he's going to meet Vladimir Putin. They're going to go to Hungary. He had a 2-hour phone call. He's going to see Zelensky in the Oval Office, I think, tomorrow. What chance of convincing Vladimir Putin to lay down his arms?
Well, good chance. By the way, good evening, Steve. I'm trying to do what politicians do so many times, speak in front of a bookcase to make me look very intelligent. Anyway, but look, Trump, let's look. Yeah, we all do it. I'm not at home this week, but I'm in a hotel. Anyway, look, Trump, look, like him or loathe him, and I think most people will agree he's a deal maker. Like him or loathe him, and I personally think he is committed to ending wars. I think there's an authenticity about that. Where he's got it perhaps questionable is so far is being rather too soft on Putin, rather too hard on Zelensky. But look, I quote from a former chief of the UK Armed Forces, this war will end, like all wars do, with division of land, with buffer zones, with guarantees and such like. It's just how much to one side can he get Putin, as you said, to lay down his arms, or, you know, to get some deal that is reasonably fair to both sides.
I mean, he's a hard man, obviously, Putin. You're a hard man yourself. When you hear Donald Trump talk about the young soldiers being killed on the front line, whether they be Russian or Ukrainian, but mainly Ukrainian, that really, I think, shows there's a genuine softness to Donald Trump who wants to stop people being killed. That's not an act.
Yeah, and some people may say, look, he's just doing this to get the Nobel Peace Prize. I personally think, for all his faults, and say it's not about to judge his character or anything else, I do think there's a sincere, authentic desire to end war. And he says it pretty much every time he speaks about the number of soldiers being killed. It is a war that, you know, shouldn't have started. It is a war that could have been ended in April 2022, but it was scuppered by our Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, under instructions from the US President at the time, Joe Biden. There is a big commitment. Whether it would have started before, if he was in power or not, that's debatable. But I do, as you said, I think there is a genuine desire to commitment, but to end it. But it's just how you do go about it.
Yeah, he certainly wasn't going to end it in one day like he claimed he would have during the election campaign. Let's turn our attention to the UK. We've got the MI5 chief, Ken McCallum. He's warned that China poses a daily threat to Britain's national security. He's frustrated over the collapse of a major Beijing-linked spy case. Britain and its stance toward China, they have softened a little bit under Keir Starmer. He's made the UK more vulnerable, it would appear, and MI5 might agree with that.
Yeah, look, this case, it's a complicated case, and perhaps your viewers won't want to hear the whole thing. But look, personally, I think that the fascinating thing about this is not that spying's taking place, because Ken McCallum, it takes place every day, in fact, on all sides. It's the fact that this particular case against two individuals was stopped at the prosecution stage. And you have to ask, yourself, why? Is it because the government or the senior civil servants were involved, or weren't they? And I think you have to really sort of say, if they knew about it and collapsed the trial in this case, then they're lying to Parliament and there's cover-ups. Or if they weren't aware, then they're incompetence. You don't win it all. But I think with your other point, I say so many times that join the dots, find the vested interests, and follow the money. So much of the UK's interests are now, owned by China. They own most of our debt, and we're in this chronic debt syndrome. They own a lot of our companies, and I think there's this softening, as you say, that's really trying not to upset the apple cart, because we've got ourselves into such a sticky mess.
Adrian, I know you'll love this, but looking at the pictures of the MI5 boss, if you were casting for an MI5 boss for a movie, he'd be exactly the sort of bloke that would be running MI5. Have a look at him. I mean, seriously?
Yeah. It's more, but he reminds me maybe a little bit more like Mr. Bean. But I don't want to be sort of cast aspirations against Ken. But look, MI5. it's actually, to be honest, on a separate point, it's a bit like our police officers now. You know, the hard people we sort of envisage at the top of police or MI5 is not always the way that it is these days.
Adrian, always good to catch up with you, my friend. Have a great weekend. That's Adrian there in the UK.